quite the same. But then if we'll take a moment to mute ourselves, then we can welcome everybody who's also joining us on Facebook Live this evening for Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. And someone once said to me, never have somebody who comes on time late. So we wait. And now my clock just says that it's 6:30. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav V'tzivanu lehadlik ner V'tzivanu lehadlik ner V'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat. Karov Adonai lechol korah lechol asher yikra'uhu lechol korah lechol asher yikra'uhu v'emet ayam badidai Shabbat tov lehodot l'Adonai ulezamer l'shimcha elyon ulezamer l'shimcha elyon mizmor shir leyom haShabbat tov lehodot l'Adonai ulezamer l'shimcha elyon ulezamer l'shimcha elyon lehagi בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות עלי עשור ועלי נבל עלי היגיון בחינוך מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון. For Kabbalat Shabbat, we have a very, 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 very special melody that I want to share. This is actually a world premiere, technically. It's been on YouTube for a little bit, but it's a world premiere for us. So Beth Reinstein composed a really awesome Shir Ladonai. She asked me to sing a part on it. There's about 8 people, different cantors and cantorial soloists on it, singing a choral part. It's short, it's sweet, it's super catchy. It's been in my head for weeks now, and so I asked her if we could play it during services. She graciously said yes, and I invited her to share a little bit about why she wrote it, how she wrote it, and whatever she wants to share. So Beth, the floor is yours.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. It's good to see you. I wrote this song for school, actually. I was in a class with Noah Aronson over the summer, and he asked us to take a look at the Shabbat liturgy and to write our own prayers. And I was very intimidated by that. And also, I struggled a bit with, I'm like, writing something in English? Oh, I don't know about that. But then this song came out, and I was thinking about, like, what is it about Shabbat that I love, especially Kabbalat Shabbat? And it's just to sing and to be. And then the word sing it out came into my head, and thus a melody was born. So I hope it helps to bring that festiveness and the joy of Shabbat to everyone tonight. Enjoy. Sing it out. 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 Shiru Ladonai Shir Hadash. Sing with joy. 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 Shiru Ladonai Shir Hadash. Shiru Ladonai Shir Hadash. Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz. Shiru Ladonai Baruch Shemo. Shiru Ladonai Shir Hadash. Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz. Shiru Ladonai Baruch Shemo. Sing with all your heart. All your heart. Sing with all your heart. All your heart. Sing with all your heart. All your heart. Shiru Ladonai Shir Hadash. Shiru Ladonai Shir Hadash. Shiru Ladonai Shir Hadash. Sing it out.
Wasn't that awesome? And the part that was stuck in my head, originally I was supposed to sing a tenor part, but a little mix-up happened, so I ended up singing a bass part. So I had Shiru Ladonai Shir Hadash stuck in my head like for weeks. It's still stuck in my head. Next slide. Thank you very much, Beth. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei הקדוש ברוך הוא. בואכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, מי מלך מלאכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם, שלום עליכם, מלאכי השרת, מלאכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם, שלום עליכם, מלאכי השרת, מלאכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם, שלום עליכם, מלאכי השרת, מלאכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא. דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת וקבלה, שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. יאי לי לי, יאללה לה 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 לך דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה, לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. יאי לי לי, יאללה לה 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 לך דודי, יאללה דודי שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה יאי לי לי ילללי לך דודי ילללי לקראת כלה ילללי פני שבת נקבלה. We rise as we are able. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה יאי לי לי ילללי לך דודי ילללי לקראת כלה ילללי פני שבת נקבלה.
So we know that the Israelites are not long on patience. And this week we are reminded yet again of their impatience. And while Moses is at the top of the mountain in a tete-a-tete with God, receiving the Torah, he's up there a long time and they wonder what has happened. And so they build a golden calf, or actually they convince Moses' brother Aaron to build one. If you want to see an illustration of it, looks like Nancy and Jerry Fink have one as their screen backdrop today. What's so wrong about building a calf? A golden calf? What's so wrong about idolatry? I mean, clearly this golden calf isn't going to be able to do anything. We already know that way back from the time of Abraham, the Midrash about how he smashes all the idols in his father's idol shop and then blames it on the largest idol. When his father said, well, that's silly, an idol can't do that. And Abraham says, well, then why do you worship them? So what's the big deal if these idols are just worthless? Why would idolatry bother God so much? I think it's because an idol is the antithesis of God in this way. What is God's name? We call God in English Adonai, but that, of course, isn't a correct pronunciation. It's Yud-Hey, Vav-Hey, the verb to be. As God introduces God's self with the burning bush to Moses, I was, I am, I will be. God is the unfoldingness of being. God is the ever-changing ground beneath us. That to have faith in God means we believe that nothing is ever static. Things are always moving, always changing. And what does the golden calf represent? Solidity, fixedness. It's as if to say, we don't want anything to change. We want to control our lives completely. And that's what it means to believe in an idol. And God says, no, that's the antithesis of what it means to believe in the one God of the universe. Because what it means to have faith is to understand that life is a continuous change. That God is the underground, undergird of being, the unfolding of each and every moment. I have a ring that I wear that my daughter bought for me while I was in Israel, and she bought the same one for her, so we would have matching rings. And it says, Hanagam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass. It reminds her of a story that I've told, a well-known tale about a monarch who asks someone to find what is something that will make somebody who's happy sad and someone who's sad that's happy. And this person goes on a quest and finds it's this expression, Gam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass. So that if I'm in a period of difficulty, I might be happy to hear this. My period of happiness or moment of happiness, I'm going to be a little disappointed. But of course, what we know is this is just the reality of what it means to be alive, is that everything's growing, changing, developing, dying, all happening. So as we welcome this Shabbat, what we try to do is let go of that which we grasp onto, the fixed ideas, the fixedness, which is what idolatry represents, and to allow ourselves to go into the flow of being. That's what Shabbat helps remind us of, and what the golden calf cautions us about. So as we take these moments to welcome Shabbat and take a few deep breaths, we just notice what arises without judgment. Because Gam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass. The good, the bad, the difficult, the joyful, it's all part of what it means to live this human life. And so meditation just allows us to notice and be with what is in this moment, and then to be with what's in the next moment, as our lives continue to unfold in being, with God holding us, and that unfoldingness of being. So take a few moments, not to hold, not to grasp, but to notice. Because Gam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass. If you're comfortable, you can close your eyes or find a quiet place to gaze, to take a few deep breaths. Notice the movement of the breath, the chest, in and out, the passing of the breath, and then the next, and then the next. To let ourselves just rest in the unfolding of our lives.
Karo ובאמת. Ayam badidayam badidayam badidayo. Ayam badidayam badidayam badidayo. Ayam badidayam badidayam badidayo. Ayam badidayam badidayam badidayo. Karov Adonai lechol korav lechol asher yikrau ve'emet. Ayam badidayam badidayam badidayo. Ayam badidayam badidayam badidayo. Ayam badidayam badidayam badidayo. Ayam badidayam badidayam badidayo. Yalla la la la, yalla yalla la, yalla la la la, yalla la. Barechu et Adonai hamevorach, hamevorach. Yalla la la la, yalla yalla la, yalla la la la, yalla la. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed, leolam vaed. Yalla la la la, yalla yalla la, yalla la la la, yalla la. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim bechokma poteach she'arim uvitvuna meshane itim umachalifet hazmanim ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. יאללה לה לה לה, יאללה יאללה לה, יאללה לה לה לה, יאללה לה. בורא יום ולילה גולל אור מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המריב ברבים. Yalla la la la, yalla yalla la, yalla la la la, yalla la, yalla la la la, yalla yalla la, yalla la la la, yalla la. If you're lost, you feel afraid, and you don't know what to say, then listen, listen to our God. Is there a question on your mind? Is the answer hard to find? Then listen, Listen to our God. Listen with all your heart and soul, and with all your might. Write them and learn them and teach them well, every morning and night. Close your eyes and listen. Quiet yourself, there's nothing to say. Stop all the chatter that gets in the way and listen, listen to our God. When the wind and the thunder finally disappear, there's still a voice that you will hear if you listen, listen to our God. You can hear it from the top of the highest hill, or from the valley below. It can come from the edge of the universe. It can come from within your soul. Close your eyes and listen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malechuto Leolam. Listen, listen to our God. Listen, listen to our God. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת פעם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We lived near the Dniester. That's a famous river in the Ukraine. It separated Bessarabia. Now it's Romania and the Ukraine. We had every day another government. We had Petlura, the Ukrainian nationalists. Every day they were killing Jews. They would make pogroms and kill Jews any time. It was very dangerous in Russia. We were afraid to sleep at home, Jewish girls. So my parents decided to send us to America. My grandmother, Fuma, was there. My father arranged with a smuggler to take us across the Dniester River to Romania. From there, we went to Bucharest and then to the United States. So we had to steal the border. We had to put the clothes on our bodies, all the clothes that we took along. The smuggler took us for a price. We came to the Dniester. It was pretty deep there on the sides and not far from a steep shore. Patrols were there on the Ukrainian side and on the Romanian side. We had to know when they changed and, of course, bribe them. We crossed in a boat, the kind you paddle with oars, and it was leaking. Not far from the Romanian border, the boat sank. I had on a winter coat and winter clothes and just sank down. There was a fellow who knew how to swim. He grabbed and pulled me out by my hair. In April, it was frosty. We walked all around the woods until we came to a hut. By the time I reached the hut, I was frozen, all ice. So they undressed me and wrapped me in sheepskins and gave me vodka. And that's how I survived.
בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף So this week's Torah portion, Ki Tisa, contains in it the next prayer that we're going to do. And you can see that prayer on line 16 there, Vishamru. So this is the week where that prayer is derived. Now the thing that I want to point out is actually the lines above it, 14 and 15, because I think this is kind of interesting. When I was reading about this, trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about, I looked at 14 and 15, and I'll share a little story after I read this. So 14 says, "You shall keep the Sabbath, for it is holy for you. He who profanes it shall be put to death. Whoever does work on it, that person shall be cut off from among his kin. 6 days may work be done, but on the seventh day there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest, holy to the Lord. Whoever does work on the Sabbath day shall be put to death." And then it talks about the Israelite people shall keep the Sabbath. Vishamrun, and we see that word again in Lachadodi Shamor Vezachor. Right? So this idea of the Sabbath being so holy that we should keep it, we should remember it, we should guard it. And those who don't shall be put to death. Now, obviously, those who are familiar with the legal system in the United States, there's some flexibility in how it's interpreted. And here, I think, obviously, those who are tuning in now, obviously you would be put to death. You're observing Shabbat to some degree, right? But obviously we don't want to be killing anybody. That really went out of style, I think, a number of years ago for not observing the Sabbath. So I remember one time getting into an argument with a friend of mine when I was in the seminary. Staunch atheist, the type of person that just wants to argue about everything. And one of the things he noticed about this was, you as clergy, you work on Shabbat. You're literally breaking this law every Shabbat. And I thought about it and didn't want to respond right away because I was like, you have a point. Like, the rabbis and I are working right now. I mean, how do we justify this? And so in the same spirit of taking these laws and interpreting them, not in a self-serving way, but in a way that I think hopefully benefits many people, not just myself. I said, I don't get paid to work on Shabbat. I just get paid not to be anywhere else on Shabbat. And it just so happens I might be the most capable or one of the most capable people of leading services, so I'm happy to do it on the days when I'm paid not to be somewhere else. So with that, please join me, Bishamru. I have it on the next slide too, Becky. Vishameru V'nei Yisrael Et HaShabbat La'asot Et HaShabbat Ledorotam Berit Olam Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael Oti leolam Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael Oti leolam Ki sheshet yamim Asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz vayom hashvi shavat vayinafash Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael Oti leolam Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael Oti leolam V'shameru B'nei Yisrael Et HaShabbat
Together we rise as we are able.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, U'mevii geula livnei vneihem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחייה כל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. יהיו לרצון אמרפי, והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי וגואלי, Adonai tzuri vegoali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. Yehiu leratzon imrefi, והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי וגואלי, אדוני צורי וגואלי.
We turn our thoughts and our prayers now to those who are in need of healing. And so we think of those people in our lives who are in need of a healing. Maybe it's a spiritual healing, maybe it's a physical healing, and we hold them in our hearts. We also think of all the people whom we don't know across our country, across the world, who are in need of healing, as this approaches for us almost a year of the coronavirus. and we send out our blessings to them. If there's someone whom you're thinking of at this time and you'd like to add their name to the chat, please do so as I share aloud the names of these people in our extended Beth Emet community who are in need of healing. Susan Aaron, Alita Baker, Todd Berman, Dorothy Binder, Jacob Blake, Philip Block, Helena Brody, Ilana Miriam Batchava, Sarah Chavkin, Josine Dubinsky, Jesse Fisher, Esther Fox, John Gasparic, Nancy Glazer, Levi Goldman, Lindsay Greenbaum, Jack Gross, Carol Hamilton, Louise Holland, Stephen Corey, Sheila Corey, Eileen Kramer, Carol Levine, Barbara Lupu, Avu Mack, Nancy Marcus, Lester Melman, Donna Moss, Sherry Musar, Deirdre Owens, Rita Paul, Mark Perlman, Michael Portnoy, Linda Rosenthal, Ellen Ross, Phyllis Rothbard, Hannah Ruloff, Chaya Mazal, Batsara Nina, Anna Schlachter, Dustin Schwartz, Seymour Schwartz, Evelyn Shanoff, Dennis Shapiro, Jonathan Shapiro, Elizabeth Sharton, Michael Siddell, Laura Steigman, Shauna Stein, Bonnie Stoddard, George Taub, Judy Varga, Lori Weinstein, Jody Westendorf, Sheila Wexler, Stanley Yenkin, Jessica Zellermeyer, Terry Zenner Greenberg, Baruch Atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim.
Mi sheberach Avoteinu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
It is the first Shabbat of March, and so we celebrate all those in our congregation who are having a birthday this month of March, and celebrate one more year in your life. And so we don't have a bima physically here, but we have our metaphorical bima, and this is how we do this if you're not familiar. If it is your birthday during this month of March, I invite you to start your video. And for those of you who are not familiar with how to do that, in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you can hover, you see the little icon of the video camera, and hit that so your video is on. If your birthday is in any other month besides March, I invite you to go over to that same icon and stop video and cover it up. And so that all those whose birthdays fall during this month of March, we will see your faces, and you will rise up to the top of our screens as if you are rising to come up onto the bima. And we offer you this blessing. On this festive day, we lift up our hearts to you, author of life, to thank you for the precious years you have given to all of the March birthday celebrants gathered this evening. In the midst of our joy, we pause to acknowledge that you, O God, have dealt gently and mercifully with them during the years which you have graciously given these celebrants. You have watched over them, protecting them, sustaining them, and strengthening them when disappointment and sorrow weakened them. For all these gifts, we are deeply grateful. Great as has been your loving kindness to them, and many as have been your blessings, still we come before you, O God, today and ask that your goodness may continue to abide with them. Grant all of the March celebrants added years and aid them to put them to good and noble purposes as we call upon you to let your blessing rest upon them. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. May God smile upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God turn to you in blessing and grant you the blessing of shalom. As we say, Amen, and Yom Huledet Sameach. Happy, healthy birthday. And so we continue now with other Shehechianu moments, other wonderful things that are happening in our lives for which we can give thanks to God. And so I invite you to reflect back on your week, or perhaps since the last time you shared Shabbat with Beth Emmet, and feel free to write in the chat something good, something for which you are grateful in the past week or recent days, weeks, for which we give thanks to God. Birthdays and vaccines. It's always wonderful to hear how more and more people are marking this life cycle, this simcha in our lives. Birth, being able to be closer to one another physically because of the vaccine. And so we praise God for giving us life, for sustaining us all these days and enabling us to reach this day.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
The reading before Michamocha is my family story, the story of my mother's mother, whom we call Gagi. Like our ancestors who fled from Egypt She had to cross the border, a border with an ominous body of water, in order to survive. Like the name of our people, Ha'ivrim, the Hebrews, the ones who cross over to find a safe haven. Gagi was a refugee, someone who needed to flee her home country because of the persecution of her people, the Jews. Maybe there is a similar story in your family from Eastern Europe or from South or Central America or somewhere else. Throughout our history, the Jewish people have understood the need to flee the harm of one's hometown or the necessity to seek safety in a new country or land. Abraham went forth, Lech Lecha, from his native land. And Jacob went out, Vayetze, from Beersheba toward Haran. Which of these patriarchs is considered my father, the wandering Aramean that we speak of at our Passover Seders? We fled Egypt in our lives as Hebrew slaves there. And that's where we are now in our Torah portion this week. Ki tisa. Our ancestors are living the lives of refugees, having left Egypt and now traveling in search of the land that will become their new home. They've experienced the hardship of not having enough water in their sojourns. And they've complained about not having food as they once knew it. This week, the fear grows, for they do not know what's happened to their leader, Moses, who is taking too long in coming down from Mount Sinai. As Rabbi London reminded us earlier, their savlanut, their patience, was thin. They will wander in the wilderness for what will be 40 years before they cross over into the land of Israel, that promised land. Yet our refugee experience doesn't end there. We were exiled from the land of Israel in 586 BCE by the Babylonians and again in 70 CE by the Romans. Across Europe, from the 9th to 15th centuries, Jews were expelled from land after land. In 1492, Spain's Inquisition kicked out the Jew. The refugee experience is not only a part of our history, it is a part of our present. Our global Jewish community continues to include those who were persecuted and forced to flee from their homes in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Think of the more recent waves of Aliyah to Israel from France, from the former Soviet Union, Iran, and Ethiopia. Back in 1881, in New York City, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, or HIAS, formed in order to assist Jews fleeing pogroms in Russia and Eastern Europe. They provided meals, transportation, and jobs for the new arrivals to our country. In 1948, in response to the Holocaust, the United Nations chartered the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Article 14 of this document declares, everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. Back in the 20th century, much of the refugee work of HIAS was for Jews, a Jewish organization serving Jewish people. As we entered the 21st century, they expanded their work to aid non-Jewish refugees across the globe. As Mark Hetfield, president and CEO of HIAS, said of the organization, we are an agency motivated by Jewish values in order to protect refugees, meaning we protect them because we are Jewish, not because they are Jewish. Today, over 80 million people across the world are displaced from their homes, seeking a safe haven, as my Gagi did about 100 years ago. They are fleeing countries like Syria, Venezuela, Afghanistan, South Sudan, and Myanmar. Poverty, persecution, and more stir and spur them to leave and find refuge elsewhere. Yamin Yingiche grew up in Myanmar as one of an estimated 152 million children engaged in child labor around the world. Forced into constructing roads and living with an abusive stepfather, at 14, Yamin escaped and began to search for her birth father. Eventually, she met a man claiming to know her father and crossed a border following him to Thailand, where she was once again sold into hard labor. Holding on to hope that she would one day be free, Yamin survived and crossed another border, escaping to Malaysia, where she was granted refugee status and accepted for resettlement in the United States. She now lives with her foster family in Michigan and is studying to become a nurse. She dreams of being able to support her family still living in Myanmar and to help other refugees in the United States. This is just one of millions of stories. Many of us are familiar with the message in the Torah that teaches, "You shall not wrong nor oppress a stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt," which Becky referenced in her introduction to today's Shabbat email. And the other verse we find, "When strangers reside within your land, you shall not wrong them. The strangers who reside with you shall be to you as your citizens. You shall love each one as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I, the Eternal, am your God." 12th century Spanish rabbi Ibn Ezra comments on this verse. It says, "You shall love each one as yourself. One must love the good that pertains to one's neighbor as much as one loves the good that pertains to oneself." I think about refugees who seek to come to the United States, and specifically over the past few years, those families that were separated at the border, parents pulled away from children and shipped back to their original countries. And that doesn't even include the story of their harsh journey they took to get to the US, or what they must have endured, which prompted them to leave their homes in the first place. The system in our government utterly failed in loving the good that pertains to these individuals and families as much as we love the good that pertains to ourselves. There is good news, and with this new administration, we may see a change in tide, and hopefully we're seeing it now. According to the Department of Homeland Security draft plans that were obtained by the Washington Post, the Biden administration is preparing to convert its immigrant family detention centers in South Texas into an Ellis Island-styled rapid processing hub that will screen migrant parents and children with the goal of releasing them into the United States within 72 hours. This is not an easy task, and we are still living with a pandemic. Yet there are things we can do to support refugee needs. This Sunday at 4 p.m. is part of Refugee Shabbat weekend. We can attend the Illinois Jewish Assembly for Refugees, at which we'll hear the perspectives of panel members such as Melanie Netzer of Hayes and Melanie Cano of Refugee One, and a refugee couple named Winifred Acrello and Celestine Mugisha. Following the panel, we'll have the opportunity to join in breakout rooms where we can hear from representatives of refugee organizations that will give us the opportunity to engage in advocacy or to support refugees in other ways. Another way we can get involved is later in the week on March 11th at 6:30 p.m. when we attend the RAC Illinois, the Religious Action Center of Illinois' campaign kickoff. We're going to learn about what the new bills are for this campaign of this year's Illinois General Assembly. And one of those bills is focusing on immigrants and immigrant justice. And hopefully we can be instrumental in passing this bill through this year's assembly because we weren't able to do so last year. This past Wednesday's Emmett Mail contains the links and the information on both of these events. And then recently I learned of another more personal way of helping refugees. That is by donating one's airline frequent flyer miles and the like. Many of us aren't traveling on airplanes right now and might even have miles that are expiring soon. And that way we can help refugees get plane tickets to travel to their new safe haven home. It's called Miles for Migrants, and it's miles with the number 4, then migrants. It uses frequent flyer miles, credit card points, and cash to help people impacted by war, persecution, or disaster start a new beginning in a new home. They partner with other nonprofits to identify refugees, asylees, asylum seekers, and their immediate family members who have the legal approval to travel, but then who can't afford airfare. With more than 80 million individuals who have been forcibly displaced due to persecution and violence, and 26.4 million of these people considered to be refugees, there are a lot of people in need and much work that can be done to support them. My grandmother, Maigagi, couldn't have crossed the border and made it to her safe haven without the help of others. Today, we need to be the ones who support those striving to cross the border and find a safe home. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu. Our God, the God of our ancestors, help us to remember our history and remind us of our present when it comes to the refugee experience. Guide us to love the good that pertains to individuals and families seeking refuge as much as we love the good that pertains to ourselves, and inspire us to act accordingly. Amen. As we are able, we rise for Aleinu. Invite you to read aloud with me. Aleinu, it was on us. It was on us from the moment our ancestors were first forced to leave home, charged with transforming their wandering into a blessing for all people. It has been on us since that wandering became encoded in our DNA, from Avram Ha'ivri, Abram, the one who crossed over, to Ha'ivrim, the Jewish people, all of us inheriting the legacy of centuries of crossing from one home to another. As our people became a refugee people, we took on the sacred responsibility to see our story as bound up with the stories of all who continue to wander. Aleinu, it was on us. Aleinu, it is on us. Love the stranger as you would love yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. God said, to advocate for a world in which the 80 million people who flee for their lives can find protection and a place to call home. To stand with those who leave nightmarish situations only to undertake nightmarish journeys so that they may exercise their legal right to find protection in these United States. To cry out for the families who are separated from one another, detained without an end in sight, babies calling for parents who may never see them again. To speak up when those in power shut the doors of our country to victims of violence and persecution. To stay outraged from a place of love rather than hate, from a place of welcome rather than exclusion. These too are our obligations without measure. Aleinu, it is on us. We know the cost of making any other choice, of demurring from the holy task of transforming our wandering into blessing. As we bow and bend to the source of freedom, with visions of a repaired world in our minds and the commitment to fulfill these visions on our tongues and at our fingertips, Aleinu, it will always be on us. To remember that there is no us and there is no them. There are only God's children, each deserving of blessings, of liberty and justice. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו ושמו אחד.
We turn our thoughts now to those who are no longer with us. And we think of those who've died in recent days and weeks during this period of Shloshim. Recall the memories of Donald Allen, husband of Ellen Allen, father of Sally Spring Allen, George Katzoff, father of Amy Katzoff, grandfather of Jake and Zoe, Lucila Acevedo, mother of Marco Siegel Acevedo, grandmother of Anya and Teo, Harold Pollock, brother-in-law of Rosalind Pollock, uncle of Melissa, Rabbi Audrey Pollock, Rebecca Pollock, Noah Corman, son of Jeffrey Corman, sister of Maya Corman, as well as those whose yahrzeits we observe on the Shabbat. We think of Ralph Anderson, Marcia Aronson, Jewel Niven Aronson, Elmer N. Asherman, Samuel Badanes, William Badish, Francis Bark, Dorothy Lily Bassel, Samuel Becker, Sylvia Berkowitz, Henrietta Brickman, Bertie Chapman, Herb Comus, Joanne Elliott, Robert Elliott Thorpe, Edith L. Fink, Stephen Fleckman, Harry Friedman, Arthur Freeman, Isidore Goldberg, Beverly Goldstein, Arnold Greenwald, Edward Guthman, Sheldon Harris, Rosalind Hewerston, Jay Hurwitz, Harry Isaacs, Esther Kaiser, Betty Kaplan, Lotta Noble, Jamie Langer, Dorothy Leibels, Rosalind Netler, Molly Olnick, Harry Pestine, Isidore Port, Merle Radley, Esther Ravitt, Rose Resnick, Fred Rosenbaum, Edward Daniel Rosenberg, Pascal Roter, Harvey H. Schwartz, Charney Flame Selch, Dinah Shapiro, Francis Shore, George J. Silberman, Louis Simon, Leah Singer, Rachel Stewart, Nathan Turner, Harry Vihone, Martin Weil, David Weintraub, Lucille Weisberg, Manuel Werby, Herman Werner, David Wolf, Harold Zolin. Zichronam Livracha. May their memories be for blessing as we continue now with the words of Mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Ve'alma divrach Yeruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, V'chayechon u'yomechon u'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, V'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omei omaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei dekudesha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tush b'chata v'nechamata da'amiran b'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
Oseh shalom, shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Oseh shalom, shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu Yisrael veimeru amen ve'al kol Yisrael amen. Join me for Kiddush. Raise your cups if you got 'em. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat l'chaim.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's really nice to see everyone here tonight. And I want to especially thank Beth Reinstein for an absolutely wonderful, amazing song performed with an all-star crew. So I think we all really enjoyed that, and I'll look forward to watching it again on Facebook because it is catchy. So thank you, Beth. That was really, really lovely. So thank you. Tonight's Torah portion for Parshat Kitisa is brought to us by Neil Shanoff, who has created something really wonderful. So take it away, Neil.
Thank you. The first one would be, I didn't know that, but Rabbi Memis-Foler told me is that God told Moses to borrow gold. So I made a gold cup. And then she told me, which I never knew also, is that the women refused to give their gold and their jewelry to the men to make the calf. So in honor of the women, I made an earring.
Awesome.
Then we have the golden calf, which I made, which looks more like a rabbit, but it's a golden calf.
That
And
looks
then,
like a calf, for sure.
yeah. And then in honor of Rabbi London's new cat, I didn't know what David Bowie's favorite, her song for David Bowie is. So the closest I could come to anything with Bowie was I made him a bow tie. So for Rabbi London's cat.
Wow, you did
So-
like a multifaceted challah midrash. Thanks,
So-
Neil. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And Neil only learned to bake challah this winter, so he's become an expert. So thanks so much, Neil.
Thank you for introducing me to this.
It's great. And we do have some openings in the Challah Midrash schedule coming up. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. I'd love to have you interpret a Torah portion in Challah as well as Neil did. So let me know if you're interested. So let me just show you the challah I have tonight, which I braided sesame and poppy seed together. So it's making a mess all over my table, but it's going to taste good, I think. Does anyone else have a challah that they want to show people? Let's see what we got here. Oh, Rabbi Memis-Foler's got a gorgeous one. Beautiful color. Beth, nice. That looks like a complicated braid, Beth. That's not just a little three-way braid. Four braids. Awesome. That's beautiful. Let me see if I'm missing anyone else. It's always so hard to, Helene Rosenberg, of course. That looks really good. Awesome. And if I missed anyone, I apologize, but please join me in Emotzi and have a wonderful week. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lachem min haaretz b'tei avon, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.